You can't just put on a grocery list, this is what I want in a husband, boop, 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 boop. And that, yes, you should think of that, but you shouldn't reduce it to that. When you understand that, or to the degree that you understand that, not just in your head, but as a lived reality, the pressure's off. You're not going to be looking to some other human being to be your ultimate fulfillment.
I am a young single woman longing to be married.
Bless you, Lydia. Bless you, Lydia. It's sacred. It's holy. It's beautiful. Bless you. Bless you.
And have children someday. I've been praying for a future spouse since I was little.
Bless you, Lydia.
But
Bless
I'm
you.
afraid I'm going about it all wrong. I want to be open to who God has for me without getting carried away in a fantasy. Do you have any advice on how to pray for my future spouse and keep my desire open to the Lord and trusting in Him?
Lydia, I love your heart. Thank you for sharing your heart with us. It is sacred. It is holy. And what I also love is your readiness and your willingness to ask the question, am I going about this wrong? And she probably senses something in there, maybe a little grasping, maybe a little wanting to manipulate the situation so her desire will be fulfilled. We all go through that. We all need to learn to trust that the Lord's will for our lives is better than our will for our lives. And that is difficult. That is hard to do. Wendy, I know you went through certain things when you were hoping to be married, and I know you can shine a bright light on this. Let me say I'll throw out a little theological nugget, and then I look forward to hearing you share as a woman from your own experience. But what I think Lydia is struggling with, again, we all struggle with it, is the tendency in us, this is John Paul's language, to grasp at the gift. We as creatures are dependent. We have this yearning that we cannot satisfy on our own. And this can make us very angry. The very nature of the original sin is that we didn't trust God wanted to satisfy the desire of our hearts, so we took it. We took what was not yet given, right? It's not that the Lord didn't want us to have a knowledge of good and evil. He wanted us to have that knowledge, but He wanted us to receive it from His hand, in His way, in His time, with trust in His gift. The very nature of the temptation is God's not going to provide for you. It's totally up to you to satisfy that need, so you got to go do it on your own. You got to go take it. That's that tendency to grasp. So we all have to learn how to be in that posture of open receptivity to His gift. So Lydia, God bless you on that journey. It is not easy. It's quite trying and difficult, and every human being goes through it. But it's learning to hold your dreams and desires with open hands, trusting in the Lord's gift rather than latching on and clinging.
Yeah.
So
I can just share some of my experiences relating to Lydia. And it was not just mine, but I remember talking about it with other friends, as several of my friends were young Catholic women. And we would, just in conversation say things like, at my wedding. And it might be something about maybe the mass, I want to have that song at my wedding.
Right.
This sort of hope, and it's a beautiful desire. I'm not trying to cast that as wrong. It's just one example of that being a theme of our hearts sharing, like that, looking forward to what an important decision it is, what an important direction for one's life it is when you unite your life with another person. I don't know that we would have used all those words, but we intuit it as so important and something we're looking forward to way more than passing a test or graduating or other things, getting a job, way more than any of those. We're looking forward to this.
It's deep in a guy's heart too, but not in the same way. There's something unique in that longing for the wedding day in a woman. Okay. I mean, I had my own longings and desires to get married, but I can't say I spent time
planning your wedding,
planning my wedding, or dreaming about what tux I'm going to be wearing.
Right. That's
so
true.
there's a difference here. Yeah, and it's a beautiful difference.
That's true. But for you as a guy, you can tell me if this is true, but when I'm married, it'll be like this. We'll do this
Yo,
together.
sure.
You know,
Yep.
like when I'm married, that looking forward to that stage maybe is.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And you come with certain expectations that this is how it's going to be,
Yeah.
and they need to be purified.
Yeah.
You can't cling to them in the same way I was saying to Lydia.
Yeah. So I can relate to that. And I remember really kind of being confronted with that history in my imagination in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because
when we were first dating, or
as we were kind of coming closer to the thought of really getting married,
right,
I felt sort of like this relationship that we have with one another is a real relationship. It's not in my mind.
Right.
It's not like just here I have a beautiful vision laid out, and always before the face of the groom was kind of blurry. So now it can come in clear and it's your face.
Right.
You know,
right.
and like, okay, and everything else is the same, except now your face is in the picture instead of blur. And I really saw that in my heart, that temptation to like, okay, put him in the picture, and realizing that I needed to step back and just stay present to the real human interaction, which was about many deep things of our hearts and our stories and our faith and our desire to follow the Lord together.
Yes.
That really, it just needed to be honored as true and good, and not simply something that I could now grasp hold of and insert into my fantasy picture. So I don't know if my sharing that story is helpful to Lydia in acknowledging that there's a certain aspect of dreaming and hoping and imagining that's, we don't need to necessarily not do. It's fine. And it's an expression of our joy and our kind of a deep intuition of the importance of all of this. But at the same time, to have a sense of God's going to write the story.
Right.
And it's going to be, we don't need to imagine all those details because we're not the author. Like that trust that he's the author of the story of our life, the author and perfecter. I love that expression in scripture that St. Paul uses, the author and perfecter. And so to trust him, and simply as we see ourselves kind of going off in a daydream, to be able to pause and say, Lord, I want what you want for me. I also remember writing in my journal, I've reread it since then, I really trust you, Lord, but gosh, I wish I could just fast forward and see where you're going. I'll still live my life up to that point, but I just wish I knew what was,
right.
Later in the story, and just acknowledging that in my heart and saying, but Lord, I trust you with that. I can't know, and I have to trust in you.
I want to say, as your husband, as the man who eventually became your bridegroom standing there, right? One of the reasons I knew our relationship was destined for marriage was because really for the first time in my life, in other relationships I had had with women, I felt like you were not treating me as just a face that could fit in a picture, that you really were attentive to me as a person and to our unique relationship. I didn't feel like I was fulfilling some fantasy of yours. And that felt so honoring. And I knew this was a genuine relationship of love. And so, Lydia, I would say to you, of course, dream about your marriage. There's nothing wrong with hoping and dreaming about getting married someday, but keep that dream open to the Lord and say, Lord, purify my hope. And there's a tendency, because marriage is such a beautiful gift of the Lord and a sign of the heavenly mystery, there's a tendency to idolize it. And purification of that hope, Lydia, of getting married is synonymous with coming to see marriage not as your ultimate fulfillment, not as some fulfillment of a fantasy, but as an icon of a heavenly reality. When you understand that, or to the degree that you understand that, not just in your head, but as a lived reality, the pressure's off. You're not going to be looking to some other human being to be your ultimate fulfillment. And that takes a long journey of inner purification from idol to icon. You don't marry a face that fulfills a fantasy. You don't marry a caricature. You don't marry some ideal. You marry a person.
Mm-hmm.
And that person is indispensable, irreplaceable, and unrepeatable. And so you can't even, how can you possibly fantasize about who that is or what that would be like? Because precisely because the person is not something you can capture in your imagination. Mm-hmm. He's indispensable, irreplaceable, unrepeatable, and we could even add incomparable. You can't compare a person to others. So any picture you have of the man or the woman you're going to marry is not going to be the same as the person you marry, because the person is a person. It's not something you can conjure up or imagine in your head. You can't just put on a grocery list, this is what I want in a husband, boop, 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 boop. And not that there isn't a place for that. I mean, you certainly wanted to marry Wendy, a man who had a strong faith. Yep. And that, yes, you should think of that, but you shouldn't reduce it to that. Mm-hmm. If you reduce the person to a list of qualities, here's the problem. Qualities are repeatable. You can find the same qualities in any number of people. Mm-hmm. Qualities are repeatable. The person is unrepeatable. So I hope that's hopeful to you, Lydia. Your desire for marriage is beautiful. Just keep it open to the Lord and allow it to be purified. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you want to share it with people who need to hear this message, please do that and consider subscribing to the channel.